So we spent some time talking a little bit about individual things around communication, around how we work, conation, what makes us work and all that, what makes us want to do things. And these are all topics around how we are. At the same time, they're topics around teams and team dynamics. So I want to spend a little time today talking about getting a little more conscious about what happens in your team dynamics. Now, if you practice Agile development, and in particular Scrum, then one of the recommendations from that methodology is to have something called retrospectives. And a retrospective is some time to spend as a team looking and thinking about the dynamics of your process. And of course, a great deal of the dynamics of your process is around communication and knowing how people work and all that. So conation, communication theory, the ingredients of interaction are all things that are useful to help us understand what's going on. But I want to bring in something else during that, and it's something else that you can practice to help you understand. I mentioned earlier that communication is usually, it's two-way. If you're doing communicating, there's one-on-one. There's a communication, is two people involved in an interaction. That means that in, let's say, a retrospective, when discussions are going on, that the best communication that's going on is when people are interacting in that kind of way, which means most of the time you are not in the midst of directly participating in one of those interactions. So it gives you an opportunity to look at what's happening. So the key here is to take some time to do that, is to really not rush that process. So retrospectives are not a time to hurry and be done with it. So for instance, for a 2-week sprint, we really recommend retrospectives that are about an hour and a half and 2 hours, and for newer teams maybe a little longer, because you need some time. The other key, of course, we suggest you use some food as well. Because food is where we socially spend more time interacting. The family meals, if you grew up with that, or going out with your friends. Those are all times, those are all social times, those are all times that we practice more interaction, and that's the level we want the interaction to be in the retrospective. So what this means is that retrospectives are a wonderful time for you to practice being present, being there with the team, and observing and being able to have commentary about what's going on. Now, one form of that commentary is you see interaction going on over here, and you say, oh, you guys are doing this. You guys are not agreeing, even if you know your communication there. You're not listening. You're taking the wrong meeting. And that's not quite what we're talking about here. Those may be true statements. This is the subtleness of it. But the subtleness of the grouped inaction is not you saying what's going on there, but you saying what's going on here. So this is a subtle difference, because you do want to communicate what you're seeing, but you want to communicate it from the point of view of what's going on with you. And this is the paradox of how these teams' interactions work. The paradox is that the interaction going on over there is best understood by you talking about what's going on in here, or me talking about what's going on in here with me. And this makes no sense. It makes no sense whatsoever that that is the way to move it forward. Because what we're really looking for, and the kind of things we see on very, very high performance teams, is this sense of communication and information flow is just going on all the time. I've seen teams that have been together for 10 years. They barely talk about problems. I've been with teams that have been together for 3 years. Tasking, let's say, if they're doing it, happens so quickly because everybody knows what to do. That's just a few words, and they might scrabble them down and make little cards or whatever. But that's why task cards start to get this really, really fast thing, because all you need is 2 or 3 words in every card. Everybody knows what it means. You don't have to write a spec for that. And it has to do with the fact that the people understand, for instance, that if they're having communication, what about the context isn't clear? So if what's going on with me is I see 2 people kind of going like that, then I know, wait a minute, do we have an understanding of the context? I'm going, wait a minute, I feel like I don't quite understand the context we're talking about here. Because that's how it'll come across for me. Because what happens in those kind of situations is the mind is not the tool that we're using. And this is the part that's so hard, especially for us that got into computers. We got into computers because interacting with other humans was very scary for us. And so we thought it would be better to interact with the computers. But it turns out that we have to interact with humans anyway. And because we're human, we actually like that. Admitting we like it may be a separate problem, but we actually like it. So what happens is the level of communication we see going on in those kind of teams, and I'm going to say it this way because this is what I believe it is more out of the heart. It really is about the connectivity that we have with each other as human beings. Not the heart, I love you and I want to be with you forever, but heart, the place where we feel what's going on with each other and we have compassion for what's going on with each other. Now, compassion is a really highly loaded term for a lot of people. But what compassion means for me is really the ability to feel what other people are going through. So if someone's confused out there, then my compassion is when I acknowledge all the times I'm confused, and I can feel and I empathize and I have compassion about that, both for me when I'm there, because it happens for me all the time too, and for them when they're there. When that's going on, there is a bridge that happens between us when that occurs. I can't talk about it from my mind. I can't talk about it from, my head doesn't understand this. And yet when that happens, there's a richness of communication that occurs. And a less need for the mind to understand it. When I talk about the ingredients of the interaction, the communication styles, I talked about needing to know what's going on with me. What's my part of the conversation? What significance am I putting on it? What are my rules? Can I say that? Can I not say that? All of those things. We all have these. All of us. And so therefore, when I see someone else having some difficulty in that area, all I need to do is remember the times that I have difficulty in that area. And that makes it easier for me to be there with that person and understand what they're going through. Not the details of what they're going through, but I can understand what might be going through them in terms of their heart. When it comes down to it, we work with each other for that sense of connection, for that sense of working on something we all love, working on a product we all want to be proud of. We want to be part of a team that gets something done, and that interaction and the dynamics that goes there. All of those things I just mentioned are not about the mind. Those are about the heart. Those are about the feeling we have with each other and about the work we do. And it's wonderful when it occurs. Because when it occurs, I go home and I take that feeling of fullness, that feeling of being involved with you, and I take that home to, let's say, my family. And it's there with them too, because I just can move my family with it. And it makes it more for that part of my life as well. And when my family is working well, then I can bring that to my work environment as well. And I feel that as well there. And I know this is a topic which many people in our industry don't want to talk about. but it's present and it's true, and I think we need to talk about it. We need to look at what we're doing. I see people that hate what they're doing, that literally cannot stand to come to work. To me, that is incredibly painful. I understand why they might have to do it, but it's incredibly painful. So can I relate to that? Can I relate to them? Can I feel the times that I've had to do that? The times when I have not liked what I was doing? And can I be there with that person, not in necessarily any sort of obvious way or getting them to talk about how they feel. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about me being there and feeling that pain that I feel when I'm going through that, and the compassion I have for myself when that occurs. Accepting those parts of me that operate like that. Perhaps you can feel a little bit right there. Just feel a little bit about how your sense of belonging is tied up to how you interact, be with, and express to the other people around you about what's going on. Thanks.